Welcome to Creepy Crawl Pub Tours, and I'm going to be your ghost host this evening, Andre Frattino. Come along on this ghost story if you dare. I have actually been giving ghost tours here in Savannah for over 20 years. I'm an avid paranormal investigator. It's my responsibility to really curate and cultivate the history that this city has presented itself and the region as a whole, and Georgia Southern is very much part of that history. When I'm not busy touring people through the historic district of Savannah trying to scare them, I am the new director of business engagement for the Office of Business Engagement at Georgia Southern. And tonight I'm going to take you through a leisurely stroll. We're going to go from haunted pubs to spooky locations. Everyone says Savannah is one of the most haunted cities in America. And if that's the case, did people in the 17 and 1800s have their own ghost stories? And the answer to that is yes, 100%. I can't think of a better house to represent that than this one right here. This is the Juliette Gordon-Low house. This is the birthplace of the founder of the Girl Scouts. Now, the night that Juliette's mother has passed away, before she does so, everyone gathers in the second-story master bedroom to pay their final respects to the matriarch of the home. That is everyone except for Margaret. She's Juliette's sister-in-law, just married her brother not too long before, didn't really know everyone all that well just yet, and decided that she wanted to give the immediate family some space, so she waited out in the hallway. Story goes that as she was sitting in the hallway, she witnessed as a Confederate soldier marched up the stairs, turned, and went into the bedroom. Now, as everyone consoles themselves, Margaret is asking about who that gentleman was that walked in and out of the room. Under the shock of the family, who she described to the T was Captain Gordon, their father, a man that Margaret had never met during his lifetime. I think it's a sweet story, you know? A lot of times people come on my ghost stories to get scared, to be frightened, to be terrified. But I think what really draws us to the paranormal is our own mortality. We want to know that when we die, there's someone on the other side to see us off to the hereafter. All right, behind me is Colonial Park Cemetery. Now, most of the people buried in here are yellow fever victims, and yellow fever was a terrible ordeal that would hit the South on an annual basis. And a way to avoid the yellow fever epidemics, Savannians built underground tunnels that exist throughout the city of Savannah and stretch from home to business, to school, to hospital, to hotel. And people move around below ground to avoid all the death going on above ground. Now, as ridiculous as those underground tunnels sound, they really did truly do the trick. Because we discovered by the time we built the Panama Canal in the early 1900s, yellow fever wasn't spread like the common cold. It was spread through mosquito bites. Not a lot of mosquitoes flying around below ground, so those tunnels, they really did work. But pirates used to use them to smuggle things in and out of the city as well. And there are supposedly a few pirates still lurking down there below. Now, that is the childhood home of Conrad Aiken. Conrad Aiken is a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. He actually grew up here in Savannah. Conrad spent the rest of his life traveling all over the country and the world as an orphan, and then very morbidly returned back to the city of Savannah in his later years and moved to the row house directly next door, where he died in the 1970s. The cemetery closed its gates in the 1850s, so he's 120 years too late to be buried here. He's actually buried out at the much more famous cemetery, Bonaventure. That used to be an apartment that a friend of mine lived in back in 2008. Now, within a week of moving in, she's rattling the keys at the door trying to get inside when she said that she felt something glaring at her from behind. And she spun around just in time to see a man standing in the back of the cemetery, dressed in all black, very perfectly still, looking at her from across the street. Frightened her at first, but then she figured, you know what? No big deal, must be a groundskeeper. She goes inside and she forgets about it. But from that night on, whenever she returned home, she'd be greeted by that man, standing very perfectly still in the cemetery. The only difference each night is he was gradually getting a little bit closer. That's too much for her. She goes running inside. She calls the landlord. She goes, look, I got a big place. I can't stay here anymore. She said the landlord got really quiet. And then he starts up again and goes, whoa, 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 whoa. You said there's a guy? She goes, yes. Was he wearing all black? Loses it on this guy. She goes, I gotta know. Do you know who this guy is? Suddenly he hangs the phone up, and that's enough for her. She jumps in the car, takes off down the street. She stays at her boyfriend's house that night. Next morning, they come back, move her out, never have any problems with the landlord. Never really hear from him ever again. Far more likely, whoever's haunting that cemetery isn't haunting it at all, but trying to haunt that house. And if that's the case, who do we know that could be? Conrad Aiken. Well, thank you for joining me on this tour of spooky Savannah. I hope you had a lot of fun. Good night.